The stars looked different from the Bridge of Times, the horizon asterisk. Captain Taeyang stood with his hands behind his back, watching the massive space station grow larger on the view screen. It was shaped like a wheel, spinning slowly in the darkness. Lights covered its surface, like a city made of metal and glass. This was the Galactic Council's home, where thousands of alien species met to discuss the future of the galaxy. "We're getting close, Captain," said Commander Hyun from his station. His voice was calm, but Taeyang could hear the tension underneath. They were about to make history, humanity's first official contact with the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Hana walked up beside Taeyang. She was young for a scientist, barely 30. But she knew more about alien cultures than anyone else on Earth. She had spent years studying the few messages humanity had received from space. "Do you think they'll accept us?" she asked quietly. Taeyang smiled, though he didn't feel as confident as he looked. "We'll find out soon enough." 41. Ambassador Yuna joined them on the bridge. She wore a formal Earth uniform, dark blue with silver trim. Her face was serious but hopeful. "The Council has agreed to hear our petition. That's already more than many expected." 4. Asterisk. The Horizon Times docked at the station 2 hours later. The airlock opened with a hiss, and the Earth delegation stepped into a corridor filled with aliens. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated in the air or crawled on multiple limbs. The variety was overwhelming. Taeyang tried not to stare, but it was difficult. These creatures came from worlds humanity had only dreamed about. A tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms approached them. It spoke in a language that sounded like grinding metal, but a small device on its chest translated the words into English. "Follow me. The Council is waiting." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Other aliens stopped to watch the humans pass. Some looked curious. Others looked disgusted. Taeyang heard whispers in languages he couldn't understand, but the translator picked up fragments. Primitives. The quarantined ones. Why did we let them come here? The council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like an amphitheater, with thousands of seats rising up in circles. Representatives from different species sat in groups, their strange forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center of the chamber was a platform where speakers could address the council. Ambassador Yuna walked to the platform. Her footsteps echoed in the huge space. Taeyang, Hyun, and Hana stood at the edge, watching. Yuna took a deep breath and began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she said. Her voice was steady and clear. "I come before you, representing Earth and all humanity. For thousands of years, we have lived alone in our solar system, wondering if we were the only intelligent life in the universe. Now we know we are not alone. We ask to join this council, to share our knowledge and learn from yours, to be part of this greater community." Silence filled the chamber for a moment. Then, laughter began. It started with a few aliens and spread through the crowd. Not friendly laughter, but mocking, cruel sounds. Some aliens didn't even try to hide their contempt. A large creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bear stood up. Its translator identified it as a Vex-Tar, a species that controlled hundreds of worlds. "Earth," it said, and the words sounded like an insult. "You are children playing with fire. You have barely left your own planet. You know nothing of the galaxy's ways. You are weak, primitive, and dangerous. We do not need another species that will cause problems." Other council members nodded in agreement. Some shouted their support for the Vex-Tar's words. Yuna stood on the platform, her face red with anger and embarrassment. But she said nothing. There was nothing she could say that they would hear. Then the lights in the chamber flickered. A cold wind seemed to blow through the room, though there was no air moving. The aliens stopped talking. Fear spread across their faces like a wave. Something appeared above the center platform. It was not solid. Not quite there. like looking at something through water. It had a shape that hurt to look at directly, constantly shifting and changing. The presence felt old, impossibly old, like it had existed since before the stars were born. The translator devices went silent. No machine could interpret what this thing was saying, but somehow, everyone in the chamber understood it anyway. The words appeared directly in their minds. "You laugh at the children of Terra," the entity said. Its voice was like the sound of galaxies being born and dying. "You mock what you do not understand. I am the Keeper. I have watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. I have seen species greater than yours turn to dust. And I tell you now, with all the authority of one who has seen everything, do not provoke the inheritors of Earth. They were sealed away for a reason. They were quarantined, not to protect you from them, but to protect them from what they once were." The Vextar who had spoken earlier stood up again. It tried to sound brave, but its voice shook. "You speak in riddles, Ancient One. These humans are nothing. They have no power, no empire, no strength." The Keeper turned its attention to the Vextar. Even though it had no eyes that anyone could see, everyone felt its gaze fall on the alien. "I warn, only once," it said. "Do not test them. Do not challenge them. Let them grow at their own pace. If you force their hand, you will discover what I have kept locked away for 50,000 years." Then the Keeper vanished. The lights returned to normal. The cold feeling left the room, but the fear remained. The Vextar ambassador's face twisted with anger and shame. No one spoke to his species that way. No one threatened them. He pointed at Yuna with one clawed hand. "If Earth wants respect," he said loudly, "then let them prove themselves. We challenge humanity to the combat trials. Let us see if they are as dangerous as this ancient fool claims." Murmurs spread through the council. The combat trials were brutal. Many species had entered them, seeking membership. Most had failed. Some had been destroyed. Ambassador Yuna looked back at Taeyang. He gave her a small nod. She turned back to the council and spoke clearly. "We accept." 3 weeks later, the Horizon Times arrived at the Vextar home system. The combat arena station floated in orbit above their capital world. It was a massive structure built specifically for these trials. Thousands of species had competed here over the centuries. The station's walls were covered with marks and scars from past battles. Captain Taeyang stood in the briefing room with his officers. Commander Hyun displayed tactical information on the holographic screen. Dr. Hana sat at the table, looking worried. She had researched everything she could find about the trials, and none of it was encouraging. "The trials are always lethal," she said. "Other species treat them as a way to prove dominance. The Vextar use them to intimidate new members. Species that lose badly often become vassals, forced to serve the winners." "Then we won't lose," said a voice from the doorway. Lieutenant Nari walked in, followed by 11 Marines in combat armor. She was short, but moved with dangerous grace. Her squad had trained together for years. They were the best Earth had. Another officer entered the room. Pilot Junho wore a flight suit and carried his helmet under his arm. He looked too young and relaxed for what they were about to face. "When do we start?" he asked with a smile. Taeyang looked at his team. These people would determine humanity's future. "The first trial is fighter combat," he said. "Junho, you'll face 3 Vextar aces in a designated combat zone. Real weapons, real combat. No safety protocols." Junho's smile didn't fade. "Understood, Captain." "The second trial is ground combat," Taeyang continued. "Lieutenant Nari, your squad will face 50 Vextar warriors in an arena environment. Different terrain, multiple objectives. They'll try to overwhelm you with numbers." Nari nodded once. "They can try." The next morning, the trials began. Thousands of aliens gathered to watch on view screens throughout the station and across the galaxy. The Vextar, expected an easy victory. They wanted to humiliate humanity, to prove that the Keeper's warning was meaningless. Junho climbed into his fighter. It was smaller than the Vextar ships, built for speed and agility rather than heavy armor. He ran through his pre-flight checks, while listening to the calm chatter. The Vextar pilots were boasting about how quickly they would kill him. "Earth fighter, you may launch," said the arena controller. Junho launched his ship into the combat zone. It was a cube of space about 50 kilometers on each side, marked by beacon satellites. The moment he crossed the boundary, 3 Vextar fighters appeared on his sensors. They moved in a standard attack formation, coming at him from different angles. The lead Vextar pilot's voice came over the open channel. "Surrender now, human, and we'll make your death quick." Junho didn't respond. Instead, he cut his main engines and fired his maneuvering thrusters, spinning his ship in a way that no Vextar pilot expected. Their first volley of weapons fire passed harmlessly through the space where he had been. Before they could adjust, Junho fired back. His missiles tracked the nearest fighter and exploded against its shields. The Vextar pilots scattered, confused. They had never seen anyone fly like this. Junho wasn't following any standard combat doctrine they knew. He mixed unpredictable movements with sudden aggression. He would run away, making them chase him, then suddenly reverse and attack. He used the beacon satellites as cover, hiding behind them and ambushing his enemies. One by one, the Vextar fighters fell. The first died when Junho led it into the firing line of its own wingman. The second exploded when Junho tricked it into flying too close to a beacon, then overloaded the beacon's power core. The third pilot tried to flee, realizing too late that it was outmatched. Junho's final missile ended the fight. Silence filled the arena station. The Vextar couldn't believe what they had just seen. Their best pilots, defeated by one human, using tactics they had never imagined. War Prince Kovan, the Vextar leader, stood in the viewing gallery. His claws dug into the railing. "Luck," he growled. "Nothing more. The ground combat will show their true weakness." The ground combat trial took place the next day. The arena was massive, filled with different terrain types: forests, mountains, urban ruins, and open plains. Lieutenant Nari and her 11 Marines stood at one edge. Across from them, 50 Vextar warriors waited. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed to tear through metal. The signal began the fight. The Vextar charged forward, roaring, expecting to overwhelm the tiny human force through pure numbers and strength. But Nari had other plans. Her squad immediately split into 3 groups and disappeared into the terrain. They didn't stand and fight. They scattered, using the environment to their advantage. The Vextar found themselves chasing ghosts. The first group of Vex's Tar warriors ran into the forest section. They spread out, searching for the humans. Then, the traps began. Hidden charges exploded under their feet. Tripwires activated weapons that fired from unexpected angles. The humans had only been in the arena for minutes, but they had already set up a defensive network. When the Vextar tried to regroup, Nari's teams hit them from multiple directions. They used suppressive fire to pin down groups, then flanked them while they were focused elsewhere. They targeted leaders first, breaking the Vextar command structure. They moved constantly, never staying in one place long enough to be cornered. The Vextar strength was impressive. Their armor was thick. Their weapons were powerful. But they fought like individuals, seeking glory. The humans fought as a coordinated unit, each member supporting the others. Where the Vextar relied on strength, the humans used tactics. Where the Vextar charged forward, the humans adapted and countered. In the urban ruins, Nari set an ambush. She positioned her Marines in buildings, overlooking a narrow street. When 20 Vextar warriors rushed through, the humans opened fire from above. The aliens tried to return fire, but they were exposed and vulnerable. Half of them fell before they could find cover. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 2 of Nari's Marines had been injured, but survived. 47 Vextar warriors lay dead or incapacitated in the arena. The remaining 3 had surrendered. War Prince Kovan watched the final moments from the viewing gallery. His face was twisted with rage. Around him, other council members whispered in shock and fear. These humans had just defeated a force more than 4 times their size. They had made it look almost easy. Dr. Hana had watched both trials from Times the Horizon asterisk. While everyone else celebrated, she studied her research. During the trials, she had taken a shuttle to a nearby moon. Ancient ruins covered its surface. She had found inscriptions there, written in languages that had been dead for thousands of years. Her translation device struggled with the old text, but she understood enough. "Fear the children of Terra," one inscription read. "They are born for war." Another said, "We sealed them away. May they never remember what they are." Hannah's hands shook as she read. What had humanity been? Long ago. What had their ancestors done that required them to be locked away on Earth? Back at the arena station, War Prince Kovan made an announcement that broadcast across the galaxy. "The trials prove nothing," he said, his voice filled with hatred. "These humans won through tricks and deception. They have no honor. As of this moment, the Vextar Empire declares Earth an enemy. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who insult us." Captain Taeyang heard the declaration and closed his eyes. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. But deep down, he had known. Some species only understood strength, and now humanity would have to show them just how strong they really were. 6 months passed after the trials. Humanity knew war was coming. Earth's outer colonies began preparing defenses. Ships that had been used for exploration were retrofitted with weapons. Every man and woman who could fight went through military training. The entire species mobilized. Admiral Day commanded Earth's home fleet from his flagship, Indomitable Asterisk. He was older than most officers, with gray hair and a face marked by years of hard decisions. He stood on the bridge, watching tactical displays that showed the positions of human ships across multiple star systems. "They're coming," said Bora, the communications officer. Her voice was steady, but her hands moved quickly across her console. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of New Sejong system. Lots of them. How many?" Admiral Day asked. Bora's face went pale. "More than 3,000 ships, Admiral. It's the entire Vextar battle fleet." General Minho's face appeared on the main screen. He commanded Earth's ground forces and coordinated planetary defenses. "They're hitting 3 colonies at once," he said. "New Sejong, Hanbit Station, and Taebek Colony. They want to destroy our outer settlements and force us to surrender." Admiral Day studied the tactical map. The Vextar were using classic overwhelming force strategy. They believed numbers alone would crush humanity. "Evacuate civilians from all 3 locations," he ordered. "Military personnel will hold as long as possible to buy time. We need every hour we can get." At New Sejong, the colonists scrambled to board evacuation ships. The planet was home to 50,000 humans, mostly farmers and researchers. They had built a peaceful settlement on a world with green forests and blue oceans. Now that peace was ending. The Vextar fleet arrived in orbit like a storm. Their ships blocked out the sun. They began bombardment immediately, targeting military installations and infrastructure. The colony's defense platforms fired back, but they were vastly outnumbered. Lieutenant Nari was on the ground with her Marines. They had been stationed at New Sejong to train local militia. Now they fought a desperate rearguard action, holding key positions so civilians could escape. "Fall back to checkpoint 3, she shouted over the sound of explosions. "Make them pay for every meter." In orbit above Hanbit Station, a small fleet of human ships engaged the Vextar. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. Captain Taeyang's Times, the Horizon Times, had been retrofitted with new weapons designed by Gina, Earth's chief engineer. She had worked without sleep for months, developing technology that might give humanity an edge. New systems are online, Captain, reported Commander Hyun. Electronic warfare suite is ready. Kinetic weapons loaded. Taeyang watched the Vex-Tar ships approaching. They moved in tight formations, confident in their superiority. Wait until they're in optimal range, he said calmly. Let them think we're running scared. 2. The Vex-Tar opened fire. Their energy weapons lit up space like fireworks. Human ships scattered, dodging the incoming fire. Some weren't fast enough. 2 destroyers exploded, their crews lost in an instant. But the survivors kept moving, kept fighting. Now, Taeyang ordered. Asterisk. The Horizon Times and the other human ships activated their new systems. Electronic warfare packages flooded the Vex-Tar network with false signals. Their targeting computers went haywire, showing phantom ships everywhere. Command and control broke down as different Vex-Tar vessels received conflicting orders. While they were confused, the human ships struck. Railguns fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. These kinetic weapons hit with devastating force, punching through Vex-Tar shields and armor. Missiles launched in swarms, overwhelming point defense systems through sheer numbers. But the real surprise was hidden in the asteroid belt. Months ago, Gina had positioned weapons satellites among the rocks. They looked like mining equipment. Ignored by Vex-Tar scouts, now they activated. Nuclear-pumped lasers powered up and fired. Catching the Vex-Tar fleet from unexpected angles, the battle became chaos. The Vex-Tar had numbers, but humans had preparation and adaptability. Every time the aliens tried to organize, human tactics disrupted them. Small ships darted in, struck hard, and retreated before the Vex-Tar could respond. Mines disguised as debris exploded when enemy ships passed. Electronic attacks made their sensors unreliable. At Taebaek Colony, the fighting was even more brutal. The Vex-Tar landed ground forces, determined to crush human resistance up close. But the humans had learned from history. They didn't fight fair. They used every dirty trick humanity had invented over thousands of years of warfare. Ambushes, booby traps, hit and run attacks, psychological warfare. The Vex-Tar were stronger individually, but humans understood something the aliens didn't. War wasn't about honor or glory. War was about winning, whatever the cost. The Battle of New Sejong lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Vex-Tar had lost 400 ships. The human fleet had lost 89. It wasn't a fair trade for humanity, but it wasn't the massacre the Vex-Tar had expected either. War Prince Kovan watched the battle reports with growing fury. How were these primitives defeating his warriors? He ordered reinforcements from other systems. If 3,000 ships weren't enough, he would send 6,000. He would send 10,000 if necessary. Earth would burn. But something else was happening across the galaxy. The Galactic Council members watched the battles with growing alarm. These humans weren't just defending themselves. They were winning. Their tactics were unlike anything the Council had seen before. They combined technology with ruthless efficiency and unpredictable creativity. Elder Sora, one of the oldest Council members, studied the recordings. Her species had been spacefaring for 10,000 years. She had seen many wars. But this was different. The humans fought like they had been doing it forever. Their tactics showed deep understanding of warfare at every level. Then the Keeper appeared again. This time, it didn't manifest in one place. Its presence filled communication networks across the galaxy. Every species capable of receiving signals heard its message. "You were warned," the Keeper said. Its voice resonated in the minds of billions. "The children of Terra are awakening. You chose to strike first. Now witness what terror sleeps in the hearts of humans. They have forgotten what they once were, but war remembers them. War calls to something deep in their nature. You have made a terrible mistake." 1. The message ended, but fear spread through the galaxy like a plague. Even species that had nothing to do with the conflict felt it. Something ancient had been disturbed. something that should have stayed sleeping. Admiral Day received reports from all fronts. Human casualties were heavy, but they were holding. More than that, they were pushing back. Every battle taught them something new. They adapted faster than the Vextar could adjust. Human commanders shared information instantly, learning from each other's successes and failures. "Admiral," said Bora, "we're receiving surrender requests from some Vextar ships. Their crews are refusing to fight." Day raised an eyebrow. "Already? We've only been fighting for a week." "They're scared, sir," Bora said quietly. "They're calling us demons. They say we fight without honor, without mercy." Admiral Day looked at the tactical display. More Vextar reinforcements were arriving, but their formation looked less confident. "Honor doesn't win wars," he said softly. "Survival does. And humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us. We're not about to stop now." Nas. On Earth, Professor Siok worked in deep archives beneath the planet's surface. He was searching for something that Dr. Hana had told him about. The ancient warnings. The references to humanity's past. There had to be more information somewhere. He found it in a sealed vault that had been locked for thousands of years. Files that previous generations had deliberately hidden. Historical records that told a story humanity had forgotten. As he read, his face went pale with shock and horror. Now he understood. He understood everything. Professor Siok's hands trembled as he read the ancient files. The documents were old, preserved in formats that required special equipment to decode. But the message they contained was clear and terrifying. He activated his comlink to contact Captain Taeyang. "Captain, you need to see this," Siok said. His voice shook. "I've found records. Earth's real history. It's not what we thought." On the bridge of times, the horizon asterisk, Taeyang listened as Sok explained what he had discovered. Around him, the crew continued their duties, coordinating battle plans with other human ships. The war had intensified. The Vextar had committed 70% of their entire empire's military to destroying humanity. 50,000 years ago, Siok said. Humanity wasn't confined to Earth. We were everywhere. We had an empire that stretched across hundreds of star systems, but we weren't explorers or traders. We were conquerors. The ancient humans were weapons. Everything about us evolved for warfare. Our endurance, our adaptability, our aggression, our creativity in finding new ways to kill. We nearly conquered the entire galaxy. Dr. Hana stood next to Taeyang, listening with growing horror. "What stopped us?" she asked. "A coalition," Sok answered. "Dozens of elder species united against humanity. They fought us for thousands of years. Even together, they barely won. The casualties were unimaginable. Entire species were wiped out. Whole star systems became graveyards. And the Keeper was there. It helped broker a peace agreement." "What kind of agreement?" Taeyang asked. "Humanity would be reset," Sok said. "The Keeper used technology beyond anything we understand. It erased humanity's memories of that era. It locked away our history. It placed us back on Earth and sealed the solar system. The quarantine wasn't to protect the galaxy from us. It was to give humanity a chance to evolve differently, to become something other than monsters." Silence filled the bridge. The crew had stopped working, listening to every word. They were learning about their species' true nature for the first time. "The Keeper gambled," Siok continued. "It believed that without the memories of war, without the culture of endless conquest, humanity might develop differently. And it worked. For 50,000 years. We forgot. We started over. We built civilizations that valued art and science and peace. But the capacity for war never left us. It's in our DNA, in our instincts." The Vextar woke it up again. Across the galaxy, Counselor Quan presented this same evidence to the Galactic Council. He was a member of a species that valued knowledge above all else. When he learned about humanity's past, he knew the truth had to be shared, The council chamber, filled with panic. Representatives from thousands of species shouted at once. Some demanded that Earth be destroyed immediately, before humans became unstoppable. Others argued that modern humans weren't responsible for what their ancestors had done. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, the war continued. Admiral Day had authorized Protocol Fenrir. It was humanity's ultimate military doctrine, saved for extinction-level threats. Every human ship, every soldier, every weapon system operated under one principle: total war. No half measures. No holding back. Jiwan led a special forces team deep into Vextar territory. They were invisible ghosts, striking at supply lines and command centers. They sabotaged shipyards. They assassinated key leaders. They spread fear and confusion wherever they went. The Vextar couldn't find them, couldn't stop them. It was like fighting shadows. In space, the human fleet pushed forward. They had learned the Vextar's tactics and adapted to counter them. More than that, they were using strategies the aliens had never seen before. Humans didn't fight like other species. They combined technology with psychology. They exploited every weakness. They turned the enemy's strengths into vulnerabilities. The Battle of Vextar Prime approached. War Prince Kovan had pulled back his forces to defend his home system. He had 2,000 ships remaining, positioned around the capital world. He expected the humans to attack directly, to try to overwhelm his defenses through force. Instead, the human fleet arrived and stopped just outside weapons range. Captain Taeyang broadcast a message on all frequencies, not just to the Vextar, but to the entire galaxy. "We didn't want this war," he said. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of authority. "We came to the council in peace. We asked only to be recognized, to be allowed to join the community of civilized species. You mocked us. You challenged us. You invaded our homes and killed our people. And now you've learned what the Keeper tried to warn you about." On the Vextar capital, citizens watched the broadcast with fear. They had been told humans were weak, primitive, easily crushed. But their mighty empire was losing. Their fleets were broken. Their warriors were defeated. How was this possible? "We are not the humans of 50,000 years ago," Taeyang continued. "We've changed. We've grown. We value life now. We want peace. But we remember how to fight. Every instinct that made our ancestors dangerous, we still have it. The difference is that we control it now. We choose when to use it. And make no mistake, we are very, very good at using it." Lieutenant Nari's ground forces had infiltrated Vextar Prime. They weren't there to fight. They were there to plant surveillance equipment and map defenses. If the invasion became necessary, humanity would know exactly where to strike. But Nari hoped it wouldn't come to that. She had seen enough death. Back on Earth, Ambassador Yuna prepared her own message. The Galactic Council had demanded she appear before them to explain humanity's actions. Some council members wanted to declare humans a threat to be eliminated. Others wanted to negotiate peace. The galaxy was dividing over what to do about Earth. Yuna stood before the council assembly. She looked at the thousands of alien faces staring at her with fear, anger, and confusion. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "You've learned about our past," she said, "about what ancient humanity did. You're scared. I understand that. If I learned another species had nearly conquered the galaxy through brutal warfare, I would be scared too. But I want you to understand something important. We are not our ancestors." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Yes, we have the capacity for war. Yes, when you pushed us, we pushed back harder than you expected. But look at what we've done. We didn't exterminate the Vextar. We didn't destroy their civilian populations. We targeted military assets. We gave them chances to surrender. Ancient humanity would never have shown such restraint. Elder Sora listened carefully. She had studied the battle recordings. Yuna was right. The humans had been ruthlessly efficient. But they hadn't committed atrocities. They fought to win, not to genocide. The Keeper gave us 50,000 years to change, Yuna continued. And we did change. We're not perfect. We still have violence in our nature. But we also have compassion, curiosity, and the ability to choose. We don't want to conquer you. We want to live among you as equals. But we will not be attacked without defending ourselves. We will not be enslaved or destroyed because you fear what we might become. She looked directly at the section where Vex-Tar representatives sat. War Prince Kovan started this war. He ignored the Keeper's warning. He assumed we were weak. Now his empire is broken, but we're offering him a choice. Surrender and accept peace, or continue fighting until there's nothing left of Vex-Tar civilization. We would prefer peace. The decision is his. And then, quote, the council chamber erupted in discussion. Some species supported humanity. Others still demanded Earth's destruction. But everyone understood one thing. Humanity couldn't be ignored anymore. They were a power in the galaxy now. Whether anyone liked it or not, the human fleet held position outside Vex-Tar Prime. Every ship was ready for battle. Weapons charged, shields active. But Admiral Day had given orders to wait. He wanted to give War Prince Kovan one last chance to choose peace over annihilation. On the Vex-Tar homeworld, Kovan stood in his command center surrounded by his remaining advisors. The walls were covered with tactical displays, showing his forces. 2,000 ships against 300 human vessels. By numbers alone, he should win. But he had learned that numbers meant nothing against human tactics. We can still win. One of his generals insisted. We have the home advantage. Our orbital platforms. Our ground defenses. If they attack, we'll make them pay for every meter. Kovan looked at the display showing human ship positions. They weren't moving. They weren't attacking. They were just waiting. Waiting for him to make a choice. He thought about everything that had happened. How his pride had led to this moment. How his assumptions about human weakness had been so terribly wrong. A message arrived on his private channel. It was from Captain Taeyang. War Prince Kovan, the human said. His voice wasn't mocking or cruel. It was simply direct. You can see our fleet. You know what we're capable of. If we attack, we will win. Your world will burn. Your people will suffer. Millions will die. But it doesn't have to happen that way. Surrender. Accept peace. Your empire becomes Earth's protectorate. Your people live. Your culture survives. This is the only offer you'll receive. Kovan's claws dug into the table. Every instinct told him to fight. To die with honor rather than accept defeat. But he thought about his people. About the civilians on the planet below who had done nothing wrong. About the future generations who deserved a chance to live. If I surrender, he asked quietly, what happens to me? What happens to me? You'll face justice, Taeyang answered honestly. You started this war. There must be consequences. But your people won't be punished for your decisions. They'll be protected, treated fairly. That's more than ancient humanity would have offered. The truth of those words cut deeper than any weapon. Kovan knew the stories of old humanity. If this had been 50,000 years ago, Earth wouldn't be offering terms. They would have already destroyed everything. The fact that modern humans were showing restraint, even after everything the Vex-Tar had done, proved they really had changed. Kovan took a deep breath. I accept your terms, he said. The words tasted like poison, but they were the right words. The only words that could save his people. Across the galaxy, the announcement spread. The Vex-Tar Empire had surrendered to Earth. The war was over. Some species celebrated. Others watched with concern. Humanity had won its first major war against a galactic power. What would they do with that victory? The Keeper appeared one final time. It manifested in the Galactic Council chambers, in military headquarters across human space, and in the minds of key leaders everywhere. Everyone could sense this would be the last time they encountered the ancient entity. I gave one warning, the Keeper said. The Vextar ignored it. They paid the price. But understand this. I warned them not for their sake, but for humanity's. I feared that war would awaken what I had tried to suppress. And it did. The humans remembered how to fight. They remembered the skills their ancestors possessed. But they also remembered the lessons they've learned since then. The Keeper's presence focused on Ambassador Yuna, Captain Taeyang, and Admiral Day. I have guided your species for 50,000 years. I reset your civilization and gave you a chance to become something better than your ancestors. My experiment succeeded. You retained your strength, but gained wisdom. You can fight without becoming monsters. You can win without destroying everything. Then the Keeper addressed the entire galaxy. These humans are ready. They don't need my guidance anymore. They've proven they can handle themselves. From this moment forward, I release my watch over Earth. The quarantine is ended. Humanity is free to make its own choices, its own mistakes, and its own destiny. The presence began to fade. But before it disappeared completely, the Keeper spoke one last message. To the Galactic Council. Accept them. Learn from them. They have much to teach you about survival and adaptation. And to humanity, remember this moment. Remember that power without restraint is tyranny. You have shown mercy to your enemy. Never forget why that matters. Then the Keeper was gone. For the first time in 50,000 years, it was truly absent from the galaxy. Its purpose was complete. 3 months later, the Galactic Council held a formal ceremony. Ambassador Yuna stood before them once again. But this time, the chamber wasn't filled with laughter or mockery. It was filled with respect, fear, and curiosity. The council's speaker addressed the assembly. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, the Galactic Council grants full membership status to Earth and all human colonies. Furthermore, we recognize Earth's protectorate over the former Vextar Empire. The Council welcomes humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs. Yuna bowed slightly. Humanity accepts this membership and the responsibilities that come with it. We pledge to use our strength to protect, not to conquer, to defend, not to destroy, and to remember always that we are part of a greater community. The Vextar homeworld began its transition to Earth's protectorate. Lieutenant Nari and her Marines were stationed there to maintain order and help with reconstruction. She walked through the capital city, seeing Vextar citizens going about their daily lives. They watched her with wary eyes, but there was no violence. Slowly, they were learning that humans kept their promises. War Prince Kovan stood trial for war crimes. He accepted his sentence without complaint. He was imprisoned, but treated humanely. His example showed the galaxy that humans believed in justice, not revenge. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The colonies that had been attacked were being rebuilt. Families mourned their dead. But there was also hope. Humanity had proven itself. They were no longer the quarantined species. They were full members of the galactic community. Captain Taeyang, Dr. Hana, and Ambassador Yuna stood together on the observation deck of Times the Horizon Asterisk. They looked down at Earth, that blue-green world that had been humanity's prison and protection for so long. Do you think we'll be okay? Hana asked quietly. Now that the Keeper is gone? Taeyang considered the question. We'll make mistakes. We'll face challenges. But we'll handle them. The Keeper was right. We don't need a guardian anymore. We've learned to be our own guardians. What worries me, Yuna said, is that other species will keep testing us. They'll want to know if we're really as dangerous as the legends say. I'm Let them test us, Taeyang replied. We'll show them what the Keeper showed us. That we're strongest when we choose not to use all our strength. That mercy is harder than violence. That the true measure of power is how carefully you use it. Hana looked at her research notes. All the ancient warnings, all the inscriptions about humanity's dark past. We carry the legacy of what we were, she said. But we don't have to be defined by it. We can be better. We already are better, Yuna said with certainty. Ancient humanity would have destroyed the Vextar completely. We gave them a future. That's the difference. That's why the Keeper's experiment worked. Across the galaxy, other species watched humanity with mixed feelings. Some saw them as potential allies, others as potential threats, but everyone agreed on one thing. Earth's power was real, and it could not be ignored. In the deep places between stars, where space itself seemed to hold its breath, something stirred. Not the Keeper, but something else. Something that had watched humanity since before they learned to make fire. It had waited through the ages of ancient conquest, through the reset and quarantine, through the recent war. Now it smiled, if such a being could smile. They passed the test. It whispered to itself. The Keeper was right to take that chance. These humans might just be ready for what comes next. The galaxy will need them. All of them. These humans. Every bit of their strength, their creativity, their stubborn refusal to surrender. Because the real challenges haven't even begun yet. But that was a story for another time. For now, humanity had earned its place among the stars. They had been warned. They had been challenged. They had won. And most importantly, they had shown mercy to their defeated enemy. The ancient entity had warned only once. Humanity had proven that once was enough.